I am Carrie. I'm in my late 30s and work as an office lady while also helping out at my family's liquor store. Until 6 p.m. on weekdays, I work as an office lady, and after returning home, I assist with the accounting and management of the family liquor store. Back in the day, our liquor store was very prosperous, supplying alcohol to hotel banquet halls, local bars, restaurants, and various other places. In our neighborhood, there were no other liquor stores, so we were able to operate our business with no rivals or issues. However, in recent years, restrictions on serving times and other factors have dramatically reduced alcohol consumption. Not only banquets, but even some bars stopped serving alcohol at night. Naturally, this brought severe financial difficulties to our family business. Being the eldest daughter, and with my younger sister Amy already married, I was the one striving hard to turn the business around. Moreover, my parents' accounting was sloppy. We already had debts, and when the business began to decline, my parents continued their traditional methods, unknowingly letting the debt grow massively, leading us to the brink of bankruptcy. Nevertheless, due to my father's wish not to close down the liquor store, I, who had been living alone, decided to move back home 2 years ago. However, just running the liquor store wouldn't be enough to pay off our debts, so I chose to keep my current job while assisting with the family business. On weekdays, when I finish work and come home, my father would greet me at the shop's open shutter with his favorite drink in his hand.
Ah, you're finally back.
Dad, have you been drinking again?
These bottles won't sell just sitting here. I might as well drink them.
From his smell and slurred speech, it was obvious that he drank a lot. Dad, please stop drinking the stock. Raising his voice, he replied,
A daughter who can't even get married shouldn't be lecturing me.
He then went inside the house. I cleaned up the messy store and started working on the books. My dinner time, after wrapping up the day's work for the liquor store, is usually past 9 p.m. Even though I'm used to it, I'm still hungry. With both parents already asleep, I head to the kitchen, prepared some porridge, and then prepared breakfast for the next morning. For breakfast, my mother prefers toast, while my father prefers porridge, so I prepare both of their meals daily. And that's how my day ends. On weekends, when I finally get a day off, I'd love to sleep in until at least 10 a.m., but by 8 a.m., my mother forcefully wakes me up. Hey, hurry up and warm up your father's soup. What? Why can't you do it? Why should I do the housework when you're here? Just get up already. My mother seems to think I'm some kind of maid. Indeed, I've always been meticulous and loved cooking and cleaning, so I naturally took the lead in helping with household chores. But when I was in high school, my mother came to rely solely on me for everything from taking care of my younger sister to all the household tasks. Tired of this situation, I got a job right out of high school and got the job I have now. The job was very challenging for me in my teens, and I felt like giving up many times, but each time I was helped and supported by my seniors at work. After all, I was woken up in the morning without a good night's sleep, and after finishing my chores, I went straight to work at the liquor store. From the beginning, when the business began to lean, I have been shouldering my parents' debts, which amounted to $30,000 per year. Frankly, it is not an easy amount. I've made significant savings, so my cosmetics are from dollar stores. My lunch is always a homemade lunch. I also minimized the use of heating up meals, trying my best to save on utility bills. Then I started to work on revitalizing our family business. At first, I thought that merely distributing alcohol directly to the stores weren't enough. I asked my father if I could do something with the internet, but he said,
The way we've always done things is the best way. It's not my fault, it's the world's fault.
While I was busy thinking about the store, my mother would keep pushing household chores onto me with questions like, Isn't lunch ready yet? Have you hung out the laundry? With all this work on the house, there was no time to think about how to rebuild the business and take action, and we ended up being behind the curve. Eventually, after putting in a lot of time, I started an online business, primarily selling unique and hard-to-find liquors from our store. Given the various restrictions and the difficulty of moving around in the world, this treasure hunt style of online business proved successful, and our business began to prosper. Concurrently, the mention of our store's name online brought more customers to our physical store, and my free time became even more limited. It was tough to be so busy and not have any time for myself, but I persevered, sparing no moment, all to reduce my parents' debts. Finally, we reached a point where my parents could sustain themselves.
Amy has a baby in her belly.
That's wonderful. Isn't it your first grandchild? As I expressed my joy, my mother frowned and said,
That's why you should leave this house.
What? As I stared at my mother for a few moments, not understanding what she was saying, my father, who was listening to my mother and I's conversation over drinks, said,
We're going to live with Amy and her husband, so I'm telling you to pack up your stuff and leave.
What? But I came back to this house for the both of you. Both of them wouldn't listen to my pleas. My sister has always been a free spirit, never helping around the house. Even though she went to a junior college wanting to become a childcare worker, she dropped out just a few months later saying, I got tired of college. After that, she continued to live off the money sent by our parents. This continued even after she got married. Apparently, her husband didn't have a stable job either, so the two of them lived on the money from our parents and their part-time jobs. Yet, they lived quite lavishly, frequently going on trips. I was somewhat aware of this situation but chose to turn a blind eye. Even when I was suddenly told to leave the house, I was too busy every day to find a new place. I begged my parents to at least wait 2 months and started looking for a place, putting my liquor store work on hold. A few days into this, I got a call at my workplace from my father.
Carrie, what the hell are you doing? The store's too busy. Come back right now.
I'm at work now. Ask Amy and her family to help. Annoyed by my father, who said I should leave the house but then selfishly tried to push his work onto me, I said that and hung up the phone. A few minutes later, Carrie, it's your father on the phone again. Again? I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. As I picked up the phone, my father repeated the same things and eventually started yelling at me.
Carrie, you can leave early today if you need to.
Though I still had work to do, I didn't want to cause any more inconvenience to my coworkers due to my father's calls, so I decided to leave early that day. When I arrived at my family's liquor store, I found my father drinking alcohol, even though the store was still open. Really? Drinking instead of working? I was infuriated seeing him like that. When I confronted him about his drinking, he explained,
Tasting the alcohol is essential to know the product. Just do your work and keep quiet.
Realizing there was no point in arguing with a drunk, I silently started my work at the store. From then on, I juggled my job, the store, household chores, and house hunting, resulting in an insanely busy schedule. One day, because of this intense routine, I felt dizzy at work, and before I knew it, I found myself in a hospital bed. I passed out and hit my head on the corner of the desk. Touching my head, I felt the bandages wrapped around it.
It gave us quite a scare. How are you feeling now? Better?
Tears formed in my eyes due to the kindness of my coworker. Over the past few years, I hardly received any kindness from anyone. No one appreciated me for all the work I did at the store and back at home. My alcoholic father and self-centered mother had pushed me to the edge mentally. My coworker saw me like this and said,
You've been working so hard, but you know, soon you won't have to do anything at home, right? Let's take it easy from now on.
I thanked my coworker for being there for me. I thought I'll be leaving my family home soon. Just a little bit more to endure. This gave me a renewed sense of determination. Eventually, I found a house and began preparations to move out. However, my parents nagged that since my sister and her husband would be moving in, I should clean everywhere around the house. "Why don't you handle it yourselves? I'm not going to be involved anymore." To my response, which they didn't expect, my parents looked a bit surprised.
"What's with that attitude? We'll be relieved to be rid of someone like you."
Despite working so hard all this time for my parents, I was dumbfounded at their lack of gratitude for everything I had done. Once I finished moving out, my sister and her husband promptly moved into my parents' home. Finally, I was free from my toxic parents. On weekdays, I went to work and returned home before 8 p.m. On weekends, I could sleep in, go for walks, shop, and truly enjoy my free time like never before. A month later, an unexpected phone call gave me a reason to laugh.
What about this month's loan payment?
Suddenly, I received an angry phone call from my mother. "Huh? Loan? Isn't that the one you two created?" After all the effort I put into reviving their liquor store and doing household chores, who was it that kicked me out for their convenience? I spoke so fast without giving my mother a chance to respond. But then I heard my sister's voice from the background.
"Sis, please help. I had no idea about the debt. I thought the liquor store was thriving, and if I returned, I'd lead a comfortable life."
That is what they were saying to me. There's no way life is that easy. I could only laugh at my selfish family, my parents, and even my sister and her husband. "There are 4 of you adults. You should be able to manage money." I could hear my mother and sister arguing over the phone. They were blaming each other, shouting terrible things at each other. They were so into it that they seemed to forget that they were on the phone with me. Listening to their conversation, I felt very disappointed, even though they were my own family. At the same time, my desire to no longer be involved with them grew even greater. My father, who would rather drink than work, my mother, who didn't want to do household chores, my sister, who hated working and wanted to continue depending on our parents, and her husband, who also didn't want to work. With these 4 people gathered together, there's no way that just the earnings from liquor store could cover the monthly debt repayment nearing few $1,000s, plus the living expenses of 4 adults. Frustrated with how irresponsible they were, I told them, "I'm not involved anymore. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married soon, and planning to move abroad in a few months, so don't rely on me." After telling them this, my mother went on about how I must have lots of money and that I shouldn't go abroad, but instead return home. Annoyed, I hung up the phone. After that, I did not answer any of my family's calls, although they kept on calling me many times. The next day, I changed my cell phone number and asked my coworkers not to transfer the call to me if anyone from my family contacted me at work. And I was able to distance myself from my family with the help of those around me. A few months later, before I left the US, I heard from a relative that the liquor store's online business I had built was also in trouble, with shipping delays and delivery of the wrong products, because everyone wasn't doing their jobs properly as expected. The store received so many phone calls with inquiries and became even busier. Then word of the sloppy management spread as rumor, and the company's reputation fell, resulting in a drop in revenues. Simultaneously, rumors spread about my father's daily drunken activities in the actual shop, and the store was labeled as a place filled with drunks, which slowed the flow of customers. The family liquor store, which had recovered enough to make a living, was forced out of business in the end. Then the 4 people who had lost their jobs could not even find any jobs, and they lost the means to earn money, and they had to leave the shop and the house they had used as collateral because they could not repay their debts. The 4 people who had nowhere else to go tried to contact me, but thanks to all my relatives who took my side and kept my whereabouts a secret, I was able to avoid any contact from my family. Despite my sister being pregnant, all 4 of them remained unemployed. The four of them argued every day about how to make a living, and since none of them took the initiative to go to work, they ended up dumping their responsibilities on each other and had a huge fallout. I ended up marrying my coworker and transferred to an overseas branch. My husband was that one coworker who stayed by my side at the hospital when I collapsed. We had been close for a while, but we grew much closer after that incident. Around that time, our company had proposed for both of us to transfer to an overseas branch, and with various coincidences aligning, our relationship bloomed and started to date. And eventually, we've decided to get married. Having spent so much time trying to rebuild my family business, I haven't had much time for myself. But from now on, I want to cherish our time as a couple, working hard in both our jobs and our household chores. For years, I gave everything for my family, but they took it for granted and never tried to help or contribute, always relying on others. Well, it's karma to those who only think of their own benefit and don't put in any effort at all. I am grateful to those who saved me. Using my family as a lesson to be never like them, I want to live a joyful life, considering not just my own needs, but also the needs of others.